Time is approximately forever.
Cannot afford to be so politically correct anymore. Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
Please continue to hold for the next available representative.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
We appreciate you waiting and waiting. What is it you're waiting for? Do you even know anymore?
These are people who work hard but no longer have a voice. I am your voice.
Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new live stream. It is a Tuesday night. We have no primaries going on, but we do have a lot to cover. I'm going to want to get to a lot of topics tonight. We're going to start off by talking about the 2024 election. Obviously, that's going to encompass the entire stream we're going to do, but certain topics, because we hear about the polls recently. People are worried. They're afraid because Donald Trump leads by 0.4% less than what he led by a few days ago, that Biden's making some epic comeback and Trump is over. That's not how it works. I see so many bad takes out there from so many people, mainly on the left, by the way, but even some people on the right are a little pessimistic about what's going on because Trump isn't leading every single poll in the popular vote, despite the fact that he really never led the popular vote in 2016. He never led it at all in 2020 whatsoever. The aggregate right now shows him leading it by 1.6 percentage points over Biden, who is an incumbent president, and Biden's approval rating is still in the gutter. It has not gone up. There is no State of the Union bump whatsoever. We hear about it. It's non-existent. The economy. Certain polls are showing that, 35% of Americans say the economy is doing well instead of 25. A lot of that is partisan Democrats coming home. That number crosses 45. That number gets to 50. We could talk about a concern level, and it means that Biden is winning what is essentially a propaganda war of propaganda. And it's not like propaganda in the terminology that it's used for something good. It's propaganda in the fact that it's just hogwash propaganda. there's no real metric that really shows that the economy is improving other than inflation is getting less bad. Wages are not rising at a very high rate right now. It is true that the disparity between inflation and wages is, better, you could say, than it was 2 years ago. Doesn't mean that it's necessarily enough to offset the effects of whatever happened 2 years ago. The economy's in a rut. The economy worked against Obama in 2012, despite the fact it was improving or recovering. I think you're going to see a similar thing here, except there's no issue that's really working in favor of Biden except abortion, which, again, Donald Trump being the face of the Republican Party kind of softens that blow a lot for Republicans. And also Biden is struggling with that demographic regarding the whole Middle East thing. A lot of young voters are not happy with the way that Biden is handled and try to placate both sides. Even the Palestine crowd, when he tries to placate them, it usually blows up in his face and backfires. And Donald Trump is actually kind of, I guess you would say, doing the same thing rhetorically in a way. He's going out there saying we need to end this conflict, but he's not necessarily throwing a bone to either side. But he's got the upper hand because he's not in office. And when he was in office, both sides of the conflict tended to like what he was doing, liked his policy towards both compared to whatever Biden's doing now. So it's like Biden's finally achieving his unity. The difference is he's not uniting people behind him. He's uniting people against him. And that's why he's panicking. That's why he's freaking out. That's why Obama is meeting with Biden, telling him, you might lose this election if you don't correct course. You might lose it. They're actually admitting it. CNN has Donald Trump at 270 electoral votes out of the gate. That is absolutely absurd. That is unheard of in general. 2016, they had Hillary up at like 280. Oh, Trump can't win. He has to run the table. But even then, it's not enough. He's going to have to pick off one, possibly two states in the Rust Belt, they said. And he picked off three. He, did everything in his corner up there except maybe Minnesota, which is a whole nother story. But you don't technically need it. Again, Republicans haven't won it since 72. Reagan didn't even take Minnesota. Trump came close. He might come close again, given some of the polling that we've seen. But still, it's absolutely crazy that people actually think, oh, Trump is in trouble because some polls came out that showed him winning Georgia by 6, winning Arizona by 5. Oh, but he lost some ground in Michigan. He lost some ground in this state. It's like a little bit of a dead cat bounce. We know that. Like, seriously, I'm not saying he's guaranteed victory. This election is a hard-fought election. We're not going to win it overnight, but there's a lot to be, optimistic about. If Biden's approval rating was where it was in 2020 or even early 2021, he probably would be hard to beat, despite the fact that he doesn't even have half a brain. But still, that's not the state of affairs right now. It's not. That narrative is basically just non-existent, and that we know. But in terms of what's going on now, every single metric is looking up for Trump. Now you have the RFK Jr. stuff. I did a video on that. He picks a far-left activist attorney to be his running mate. So he's not even trying at this point to placate Trump's base or try to peel off Trump voters or Republican voters who voted for Nikki Haley. He might get some of them at the end, but he's going to get far more that ended up, supporting Biden in 2020. He's selecting someone who's far left. He's alienating the middle even. What's that going to do? That's likely going to push voters in that camp to Donald Trump. Because if they were, against Trump and on the left, that's a pick that's probably not going to move the needle against you. At that point, if you're RFK Jr., you're not going to lose supporters because he's picking somebody that's like too far left or like a communist, avowed Marxist, which again, she kind of is, but in their eyes, they're not going to see it that way. She's not like full. She's more like Elizabeth Warren, I guess you would say, than Bernie. Her optics are more, I guess you would say, she's, left leaning, but she's not like seen as somebody who's unpalatable. Oh, I have to vote for Biden if I was going to vote for RFK Jr. and I'm on the left or center left. Like, that's not going to move the needle against RFK Jr. in that way. But the people that were like, oh, well, this guy might be an alternative to Trump. No, he's not. First of all, he has no chance. Second of all, stop worshiping the Kennedys. This is another thing. What is up with the amount of people in this country that just fall on the nostalgia factor? It's ridiculous. I mean, you look at Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan did good things during his presidency, but even conservatives now at least are starting to realize and admit that he did a lot of irreparable damage to the conservative movement and also the country as a whole. Yes, he did positive things. It's not like, oh, he was a horrible president all around. It's not like he was perfect either, that we need Reaganism in the modern day, because that usually means Bushism. It kind of, I guess you would say spiraled into that. Reagan had the Big Tent. You did have a lot more like paleocon types. You had your Pat Buchanans under his administration for sure, but then you also had your Bushites, and that kind of took the party over after, which kind of has led the Republican establishment to be in the position it's in. But you talk about Kennedy, it's the same thing. This guy was not conservative. Just because he had some positions that might be considered conservative, in the modern day, back when he was running for president in 1960, did not make him conservative. If you talk about all the social programs and everything that LBJ wanted to institute, Kennedy would have likely done it if he had the, mental capacity or experience to do it, but he just didn't. He didn't. And because he happened to have a very short tenure for an obvious reason, and you saw a national tragedy, and it was also at a time where the parties were less polarized and you had a lot of mutual respect and everybody was upset at what happened, and arguably rightfully so, doesn't necessarily mean that he's like a conservative warrior in retrospect at all. He's not. He is very much a liberal. He would have been a liberal. Every member of the Kennedy family is a liberal. Ted Kennedy, the Kennedy that remained in politics up until like about 10, 15 years ago when he passed away, he was very, very liberal. He was one of the more liberal members of the Senate. RFK Jr. is basically in lockstep with a lot of those, 2000s liberal policies, and even further to the left on a lot of them. But he happened to believe that, maybe our foreign policy is a little bit too hawkish, which again is kind of a footnote of his campaign. But also on top of that, the jab is, it shouldn't be mandated, which is also Trump's position, by the way. He's trying, that's the only issue he's trying to lean right on. And it's not like a whole lot of people care about that either way. And those who do are probably going to vote for Trump anyways, because they know RFK Jr. has absolutely zero shot at victory. So that's that. So the fact he's picking a far left activist to be his running mate, it helps Trump, because when you already look at the three-way race and you see this right here. Okay, something is frozen. Okay, there we go. Trump leads by 5 points in the popular vote over Biden. RFK Jr. probably wouldn't even get the 12% he's polling at. He might get like 5% when it's all said and done, or even lower than that. But still, just looking at the metrics, he helps Trump. Every single poll, I guess you'd say 90% plus polls that we've seen, show him taking more votes away from Biden than he's taking away from Trump. So what this tells me is that his presence in the race, and now he's leaning left on certain issues, talking more about, systematic racism in the food markets or whatever. It's like, you sound a little insane when you talk about things like that, especially if you're trying to placate, more conservative voters. We hear from these like DeSantis or bust people on social media all the time. I'll just vote for RFK Jr. Well, you're voting for because you claim Trump was a fake conservative for the past year and a half. It's going to be hard to justify voting for somebody who's far left on literally every single issue except, he's skeptical of vaccines. And that's it. And he probably wouldn't even be able to do much about it if he was elected president. Oh, wait, he has zero shot to be elected president. So there's no reason for anybody to vote for RFK Jr. And in the real world, Donald Trump is going to see, I wouldn't say he's going to see a surge, but I really can't see the dynamic of who he's taking support away from changing at this stage in the game. I just really can't. So you're looking at this, Trump's already polling at 47 still, and it's like, this is like the down point of polls for Donald Trump. It's like you still see polls that are released. I mean, 4 of the last 5 polls nationally have Donald Trump leading by, just leading period, 1 point or more. And the polls that don't, Biden by 1, Biden by 2, Biden by 1. Trump wins in the popular vote in all of those scenarios, and he wins in the Electoral College, I should say. And you look at every swing state, Arizona, Trump is up by 5 in Arizona. He's up in Nevada by 3. That's down from what he was polling at before. But still, you look at even in September, October, Biden was actually leading in Nevada. That changed. You don't really have a Trump by 8 or Trump by 11 poll in the aggregate, and that's true. But I mean, this poll that came out right now, Trump by 2, that seems accurate to me. It seems like a realistic poll. So, polls correcting themselves to be a little bit more maybe realistic isn't really saying that Trump is losing ground. Same thing with, Biden leading by 1 in Wisconsin instead of Trump leading by 1 or whatever. It's polls in Wisconsin have usually underestimated Trump by 6 to 7 points both cycles. So the fact that he's leading it all in the aggregate is nothing short of miraculous for Donald Trump. Michigan, same thing. Polls there have always underestimated him, but he's leading by 3.5 points. Pennsylvania, he's leading, and that's with a ridiculous Biden by 5 poll that I did a video about on my exclusive membership website at redeaglepatriots.com that's not shown on YouTube, but it's they did the map, and they have Trump, some of the crosstabs make sense by certain regions, except for one, and usually if you have crosstabs, and that seem a little erroneous, they usually cancel each other out. But in northwestern Pennsylvania, where Trump won by 20, 25 points, they have Biden up by 40, which does not make sense whatsoever. And it's that poll also has Dave McCormick only underrunning the Trump presidential margin by 1 against Bob Casey. And Bob Casey's polling below Biden, which does not seem to really make a whole lot of sense to me in the grand scheme of things. I'm not saying the race isn't going to be competitive, but Biden's not taking the state by 5 most likely. And Trump and all the other polls, they don't talk about the other polls. I see so many people, and we know who they are. They, all these polls come out. There's not a single chirp about the dozens upon dozens of polls in swing states that have Trump up. But the second Biden leads a poll, even though he leads it by less than the previous poll, there's going to be a big ordeal about it. There's going to be a big ordeal about that poll, and that we know, Trump is finished now. Look at Pennsylvania. It's what about all the other polls? I'm not saying it's not going to be a close race. It is. But the metrics are favoring Trump unless something drastic happens, and I'm not sure I buy this whole, Americans see the economy's recovering. A lot of that is partisan Democrats who are just believing the nonsense. Those people were already voting for Biden anyways. That's why, Trump has surged in the polls since inflation has supposedly come down, which it's not coming down. Inflation is slowing, but it doesn't matter. It's the fat guy gained 10 pounds this month instead of gaining 40. It's he gained 10 pounds. He didn't put on enough muscle to really make up for that. He's still fat. He's still getting fatter. He's still miserable. That's the situation that we're in. It slowing down doesn't really mean much in the grand scheme of things. Will it placate some people? Maybe. But at the end of the day, then where does their vote position turn towards? Because it's still not a good economy if you want to even mask it as not that bad. The economy in 2016 when Trump won was not that bad either. I mean, it was stagnant. It wasn't working for a lot of people, but, it was seen as decent by a lot of people as well. But he still won even on that issue. But immigration was the key thing, and that's kind of what's going to be hammered home because that affects everybody. It should. The people it doesn't affect are the people that are living in very affluent areas that look like the 1950s compared to modern day America. North Carolina, Donald Trump leads by 4.4. And also compare the polls back in the day. Hillary in March of 2016 led by 2 in North Carolina, but Biden on the same day actually led by 3 in North Carolina. Go back to Georgia. I mean, Trump's up by 5.2%. This is a state that people never thought Republicans would win again. He's polling at 50% there. And you can go to Arizona. He's polling close to 50% there as well. And RFK Jr. being on the ballot in these places, both states where Trump has high floors but low ceilings. I mean, you look at that, then Trump only needs to win one Rust Belt state to win this presidential election, which that's what it comes down to. Wisconsin, get me Wisconsin. Get me Michigan. Get me Pennsylvania. Get me one of those three. That's all I'm asking. And that's where the election is going to be won. Even though Arizona has squishy Republicans, they're not fans of Biden, for one. For two, Republicans are doing much better with Hispanics, according to every metric. And that likely will be enough to push Arizona and Nevada into the column, because I can't see Democrats really gaining a whole lot this cycle with white voters. They probably don't even move the needle a whole lot. I could even see I think Maricopa County might move right as well. I mean, not uniformly, but will it move right? Yeah, I think a lot of these suburban counties could. I think even arguably suburban Atlanta, partially because black turnout's going to dip. And Republicans, they have a core base already. The white working class population in those counties are still going to be voting heavily Republican. They exist. So there you go. That's why I say high floor in Georgia. Either way. But you look at this, and it's like Donald Trump is in a very, very, very solid position. Texas. This is another state. Big state. Republicans are obviously favored. Democrats will admit this unless they're a part of the delusional Blexus crowd, which, again, if you talk about the aftermath of 2020, maybe they would have a legitimate case. 2028, it could flip. But what we're seeing is a shift of seismic proportions because of the border crisis, because of Biden's awful handling of everything. His approval rating in Texas is garbage. The transplants that are moving to Texas are voting Republican. Greg Abbott won by 10. Ken Paxton, of all people, supposedly uneluctable MAGA candidate who's far right, which he kind of is, but in a really good way. He ended up winning by 10. And that was in 2022, where he was, up against a lot of money on the other side. And did it exactly matter at the end of the day? No, he didn't even underperform vastly. And Texas is a state Republicans are going to go out there and win, but Trump in the latest poll is up by 11, which is crazy. And when you put it in a three-way race with RFK Jr., his lead actually goes up. It expands to 12 points, which is the same margin that John McCain won Texas by in 2008. He's going to win it with a very different coalition if he wins it by that margin. But still, and yeah, Ted Cruz lags behind him. Personally, I think Ted Cruz is going to win by 5 to 10 as well. Probably he's going to underrun Trump. Do I think Trump is guaranteed to win Texas by more than 10? No, but NPR and Marist are not exactly right-leaning pollsters. Even in 2022, we laughed at them, and in some places they were more accurate than we would have liked them to be, obviously. But still, we got to look at even the more left-leaning polls in Texas. Trump is in a very good position. He's going to take the state. Republicans and Democrats likely not going to contest it as much. Trump will win it by close to 10. He's going to flip counties in the Rio Grande, most likely. That primary kind of showed us the trends are continuing. And also it showed us that Trump isn't losing a lot of ground in the suburbs from 2020. I mean, Nikki Haley's support was not super high in a lot of counties where people expected her support to be high. The only county she really did very well in was, the Austin area, Travis County, but even there she couldn't crack 40%. And it's an open primary too. Like, it's less open because of the down ballot races that we know, but still, Trump is in a good position in the state of Texas. And I think that you're kind of hitting a wall with some of these suburbanites in some places for Democrats, but still then certain demographics in the suburbs are going to outweigh that possibly, like Hispanic voters moving right in Tarrant County, Texas, where the backdrop behind me is, for example. Like, that could offset any gains Democrats may make in, I guess you would say, certain parts of DFW, but it's going to be difficult to see them really gain. And in the midterms, they didn't really gain. In midterms, you saw, disproportionately higher turnout for college-educated white voters. It didn't exactly pan out too well for them. So you're looking at that there. You can't underestimate Joe Biden's unpopularity. You really can't. But Texas is looking good, and Biden has no messaging. He doesn't. So the final thing I'll touch base on before we'll get to Super Chats here is Biden was hitting Trump on healthcare. Despite the fact that Trump doesn't talk about healthcare anymore, he tried to repeal and replace Obamacare. There was a lot of panic and fear-mongering, and John McCain himself, who put his ego before the country. We always hear about the principled conservatives are putting the country before their ego or whatever. No, in fact, these are the egotistical bastards. These are the people that have egos the size of Jupiter. The neocon establishment, when it comes down to it, they think they're the people that are better than everybody. It's not Donald Trump because Donald Trump happens to do a little bit of trolling. You know, Trump has a big ego. I mean, he's from New York. Like, what do you expect? He should have a big ego. I mean, if you were successful and you did literally everything that anybody could ever want to do, you become a billionaire, you become one of the most liked celebrities at the time in the world, you run a successful business, have a successful TV show, then run for president, shock the world. My ego would be absolutely off the charts, but that's not the point. These people claim that they're the people that are principled. They're not principled. They're losers. Trump is right. McCain's a loser. He lost Republicans a lot of support in the healthcare department because he decided to be a backstabber. He spent how long trying to repeal and replace Obamacare? He made it his entire brand until Trump came along, and then he decided to put his own personal little club above the country, above, giving Donald Trump a policy victory on healthcare and possibly making healthcare more affordable. There's debate about that bill. We could debate it all day long. I think there were flaws to it, but I do think a lot of it was a moral panic. I feel like if it went into effect, just like net neutrality, you wouldn't see, the country collapse and people would lose their healthcare. You wouldn't see that. But that's not the point. It's really not the point. What it comes down to is the fact that Biden's trying to hit Trump on the issue of healthcare. And I said that Donald Trump could easily respond to this by just trying to say he's not going to repeal Obamacare, which might be controversial among some people, but it's kind of one of those things like, we have a border crisis right now. We have inflation out of control. Our economy's in despair. The number one thing we shouldn't focus on is throw the Democrats more ammunition on healthcare. I don't think it's wise to do. I think that there's things we need to do on healthcare. And I said we need to reform it, reform Obamacare, make it Trump care. Because, he likes to change up the branding of it. And, he obviously should. He wants to take credit for certain things and certain accomplishments. He puts his name everywhere. He puts it on buildings, Trump this, Trump that, Trump that. We know that. Trump winery, Trump steaks. Why not Trump care? Right? And it could be the same thing, except he could try to get in the mud with it and make it his own and make healthcare more easily accessible, make it more purchasable across state lines. Obamacare was partially so unpopular because of the individual mandate. Donald Trump got rid of the individual mandate. People weren't, paying for insurance they didn't need, they didn't want, they were paying the penalty. But Trump got rid of that, and it saved a lot of people a lot of money, and that's why the approval rating of Obamacare started to go up, also combined with the fact that Republicans didn't have the most coherent plan, which, again, that was a little bit overblown, but still. When it comes down to it, I say, just talk about we're going to reform the ACA. We're not going to repeal it. Nobody's going to lose their coverage. If he's able to do that, he's outflanking Biden because he's saying it's flawed. We're going to make it better because it is baked into the cake. And should it really be? Probably not. But is healthcare the number one issue right now? It's absolutely not the number one issue. It's not. I mean, it might be for some people, but they don't make up a majority of the country whatsoever. So what it comes down to is this. Donald Trump, he decided to say something very, very similar, surprisingly, on Truth Social, saying he's not running to terminate the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, as Crooked Joe Biden, which, again, honestly, it's a typo. Trump does typos a lot. I don't think they're all intentional either. This one might be intentional because he got Biden's account to post this on their garbage Twitter feed with the message that Trump is not running to terminate the ACA because they're too busy calling out his typos. Joe Budden. Joe Budden was an irrelevant rapper from the 2010s, for those who don't know. I don't think that's what Trump is getting at here. But he goes on to say he's disinformating and misinformating. I don't know if that's proper grammar or not, but I get what it means. I understand it. He says, I'm running to close the border, stop inflation, make our economy great, strengthen our military, and make Obamacare much better, stronger, and far less expensive. What did he do? He took the words out of my tweet. He took the words out of my mouth, basically. That's what he needed to say. And what did he do? He said it. He did. And he says, as it is much known, as it is no much better, stronger, far less expensive, make it much better for far less money to our great American citizens who have been decimated by Biden, his record, inflation, bad economy, Afghanistan catastrophe, which really doesn't tie into healthcare, but still, and just about everything else. Crooked Joe Biden is by far the worst president in the history of the United States, MAGA 2024. So did Donald Trump take my healthcare plan? I don't know. Maybe he did. I don't know if he did. Maybe word got up the totem pole. Maybe it didn't. I'm not going to say he's sitting there monitoring my Twitter feed himself. But whoever did, tell him or advise him on this, or maybe he just came up with it on his own, this is big time stuff. And, this is the type of stuff that needs to be done in order to spin the messaging back. Because healthcare is not a hot button issue. It's not. Obamacare is a mess. We know. I think it does need to be reformed. I don't think we need to sit back here and try to campaign on a hard repeal, knowing the hard repeal is not exactly that popular. And there are some things in Obamacare that people do like, even Trump voters. For example, the fact that you can stay on your parents' plan until you're 26, and some of these other things, and like pre-existing conditions. Donald Trump has always said he'd protect pre-existing conditions, but still, it needs to be reformed. It's not the most efficient healthcare system. Premiums are still, ridiculously expensive. People are paying hundreds of dollars a month for health insurance. They shouldn't be doing that. If they could pay, 50% of that or even less than that, and maybe they could get tax write-offs for it. I don't know. I'm not the number one healthcare policy expert, but I do know messaging, and I do know elections, and I know that if there's a third rail issue, you have to turn it on the other side, and that seems to be what Donald Trump is doing with healthcare. I'd like to see more of it. I'd like for his message to, be broadcasted a little bit more. I don't really watch mainstream news 24/7. CNN is definitely not talking about this. Fox probably is, because they have no choice. They have no choice to crawl back to Trump because their ratings are in the gutter, the complete and total gutter. But this is right. Messaging matters, And if Trump stays on message, which he's been for the most part already during his campaign, the fact is they have to twist his words to get any sort of controversy at this point. That's how your messaging is so good. Trump said something about the bloodbath in the auto industry. Well, what happened is his numbers in Michigan went up while the media looked like lunatics. So what exactly does that have to say? I mean, you look at some of these cars that Biden wants to let in from China, these electric cars, dollar store Tesla is basically what it is. They're electric and they're garbage, but they are cheap. If you let these Chinese cars in, we're not going to have an auto industry. People are going to drive cheap cars that are not very safe, that are not well built because they're cheap. It's not going to lead to anything good for our economy. It's going to lead to a good economy for China, and that's basically about it. And we need to save our auto industry. And the auto industry is the lifeblood of Michigan. A lot of people that live, even the white-collar workers in the Detroit area, largely do work in some form of, automotive industry. It's very prominent. It's very prevalent. It's kind of like, to a larger extent, West Virginia and coal, I would say, for example, or something along those lines. So the fact that the matter is Trump's messaging is on point. He's targeting the right voters. The problem is the message getting out there enough? Are they seeing it? Are we moving public opinion even more so in the direction that it should be moved in? Because we have all the ammunition. We have all the facts, the stats, the data, you name it. I don't even mind Trump running a lower profile campaign. I mean, let Biden trip over himself. Biden ran the basement campaign last time. Trump wants to run it this time. Have at it so long as you're saying the right things when you make public appearances. And if you get your message out there, get on the airwaves enough. and you still do all these events. Maybe it could be a more intimate campaign. Maybe you have events with just a few thousand people in rural Wisconsin. That's honestly good. Run the campaigns like you're running a primary in Iowa or running for the caucus. Meet people, be more personal, get on the ground more so than usual. I think that's a genius strategy overall, and it can kind of make him seem more relatable. He can tout himself as, I'm the man targeted by the system because I fought for you. And it's worked so far. The numbers don't lie, but Biden he's going to have a few tricks up his sleeve too, so we can't be too complacent. That means we got to get out and vote. We got to volunteer. Don't rely on certain, activists doing everything for you. I mean, if you can help out, you need to volunteer. You need to help out. We got to beat these people. We can't let them win. We can't let them just propaganda their way into victory, because they very well could. We can't. We've seen it before. We could see it again. I don't want to see it again, but you never know. But we've been going for 35 minutes, and we have to get to Super Chats because we have a lot of them, folks, and we're just going to cover the Super Chats and look and chat for the rest of the night. But before we dive into Super Chats, I wanted to check the optimism meter, and I think everybody agrees that they're, probably in between cautiously and strongly optimistic. We're going to end the poll here. Very few are pessimistic. Some people are. I can't blame them for being pessimistic, but still. Johnny Heartdog says, I think Trump should pay the $150 million bond in ones and make Latrasha James count it by hand. Yeah, I think he should pay it in pennies or nickels or just something that would make it even more inconvenient for them. I don't know how many pennies they even have in circulation to even go out there and pay that bond, but absolutely, he needs to make it as inconvenient for these people as it possibly could be, because they're doing the same thing. It is election interference. It's not like Donald Trump actually did something wrong and they're holding him accountable because they believe in the rule of law. This is an abuse of the rule of law. And if they applied it to everybody, nobody would be able to do business anywhere. And that's the problem. It's not like, Trump even did something remedially wrong and they're exaggerating the fine. No, it's literally none of that. It's just garbage. And if you don't stand with Trump, you stand for this garbage. You stand for this rogue criminal justice system that the right has defended for so long, by the way. The right's defended these people, and it's not true. And there was something about the justice system being corrupt. It's not corrupt against people that happen to be black or whatever living in the cities. It's corrupt against people who are threats to the political order. That's the main takeaway. Johnny Heartdog for $20 says, there are rumors that the rhinos in the House are retiring early to flip the House blue in time to nullify the electoral votes via the 14th Amendment and not certify the election. Is it even possible? I say hogwash won't work. Here's the deal. We've been screwed over so much over the past 10 years that I feel like everybody is just jumping out at the first available opportunity to come up with some downfall-ish, conspiracy theory. Oh, this is the downfall of Trump. Look, I get it. But at the end of the day, that's not even how the system works. If Republicans win the House, period, they're going to have a House majority because the next House certifies who wins the presidential election, not the current House. And still, they're not going to lose their House majority. They're basically not. I really can't see a reality where that takes place. Democrats are down at 214 House seats. They're not going to be able to get up to 217 even with the vacancies or whatever by election time, most likely anyways. So there's really no way that possibly could happen, first of all. Second of all, the left, as much as they have screwed us over and have tried to humiliate us over the years, they're not as competent as some people think. Now, Republicans are incompetent. That goes without saying, but Democrats also have their flaws, so we need to exploit them and, let them have their little false hope or whatever, but we need to still go out there and defeat them. And we can't act like, oh, we can't win, because then that's just going to demoralize people too. People jump out at, everything, everything bad that could happen. Everybody's suspicious and on watch, which can be good to a certain extent, but past a certain point, it just becomes a little counterproductive, in my opinion. I see these takes all the time. It's just not a theory that holds up in reality. John Cordisco's Corner says, why do you think the New York Appellate Court waited to the last minute to lower the bond? Then he gains $3 to $4 billion in net worth on the same day. Well, they're possibly doing it because I think that they, honestly, this is another theory. And I know I say, don't always come up with these theories to explain everything. But I think that there are theories that do make sense. And one that makes sense is they know that the cases against Trump and all the TDS to a certain extent about everything is backfiring like crazy, to the point where maybe they're just lowering the bond to seem fairer, and they're just trying to go easy on Trump because they know, and Frank Luntz said it on CNN, of all people, if they take Trump Tower, he's going to win in a landslide. And they're going to create the greatest, victimhood in political history or whatever. His, rhetoric towards it was, more disdain for Trump, but still he understood the underlying dynamic of it. And it's true. If they took Trump Tower, Donald Trump would skyrocket in the polls like Trump Tower. That would be the tower that he would have at that point. So, yeah, I don't know. It just is what it is. Trump is going to be fine financially. His campaign, I think, will be fine financially as well. All the talking points, Trump is broke, he has no ground game. We've heard this all before, and it backfired and Trump won. So I think Trump's in a stronger position than he was there. I think Biden's in a weaker position, even financially, from where he was in 2020. I think that there is a lot of donor fatigue on both sides. That's why small donors need to step up if they can and donate to Donald Trump's campaign. Stephen Kanizik says, is this why an increasing number of DeSantis called influencers are trying to edge into the Trump camp? Is it okay to still not trust them? Well, I mean, it depends who you're talking about. Like, when it comes to somebody like Bill Mitchell supporting Trump, I don't care. I think it's comical. I think it's funny. He's not, causing any harm to Trump. He's not like even a main member of Trump's inner circle. I'm worried about the appointees. I'm worried about that. I'm not worried about more people entering the campaign. I think Haley voters should vote for Trump. I think that Biden 2020 voters should vote for Trump. I think that closing off people's support is the dumbest thing you can do. But at the end of the day, when it comes to who's leading your campaign, who's in the driver's seat, we can't have people who change up for money in the driver's seat. You can't have people that ran DeSantis's campaign into the ground run Trump's campaign into the ground. So they could support Trump all they want, but, if they're going to be acting out of order and acting a fool, well, we need to be calling them out at any possible opportunity. And that's the way it is. So, yeah, I don't necessarily believe we need to say, oh, no, these people can't support Trump. No, they should support Trump, but, that doesn't mean they're going to be at the driver's seat. When it comes to Biden, you think Biden's going to let one of Trump's people in the driver's seat? No, but Democrats are going to be happy if somebody like me decided to turn on a dime and support Biden. It's never going to happen. There's no possible amount of money that could ever make that happen either. The Sandwich Man says, did you see the Susquehanna, Pennsylvania poll? Biden by 5, laughable. Well, we already kind of covered that. I did a video about it on my website for exclusive members, and I could actually pull it up right now because it's just ridiculous. You look at the map that we saw that they put an attachment to the poll, and yeah, crosstabs can be weird. I've said this. You can't just use a crosstabs in general to say this poll doesn't make sense, because usually the crosstabs will offset each other. Trump is up with black voters in one poll, but then he's losing white voters, and it's like, okay, well then they oversampled liberal whites and they oversampled conservative blacks. It doesn't mean that there's a seismic shift either way. I think looking at an aggregate of crosstabs is better. But still, when you look at this map and it's like Trump loses ground in southwestern Pennsylvania by 20 points, and he loses ground in northwest Pennsylvania by 40, loses ground in the T by 11, but still somehow in the Philly suburbs doesn't lose really much ground. He gains a little bit in Philadelphia, which, he might gain that much in Philly. But the poll map does not make sense whatsoever, and it's 400 people. The last poll showed Biden by 8, so actually this helped Trump in the average, believe it or not. But still, I don't know. It's a mess. Cool Blue 71 says Biden struggles for 40% in job approval renders him unlikely for re-election. Unlikely Dems, even if they replace Biden, hold the presidency, unlikely to hold the popular vote. No, it's absolutely true. You never really see presidents deviate from their approval rating a whole lot when they're up for re-election. That's the way it goes. You hear about the 13 keys. The 13 keys are irrelevant, and they're kind of run by somebody who's a little senile at this point. When it comes down to it, approval rating is the number one factor. And, the economy key. There's no disasters overseas. Well, the American people don't believe the economy's doing well. If they did, Biden wouldn't be underwater by 20 points on the economy despite a touted recovery. People aren't buying it. Mainly independents, because Democrats are warming up to the economy. Biden is struggling with independents even worse than he was before on the economy, and that's kind of the problem that we see in every one of these polls where 50% of independents say the economy is getting worse. Now, 20 to 30% say it's about the same. That doesn't help Biden out either. When the proportion of voters that say it's getting better, that's, like 20% of independents tops. Like, that's not going to move the needle in his favor whatsoever. And even among those voters, there's other issues that they care about as well. So, no, I really don't believe that Biden's going to find a way to recover his approval rating. It might by election time in the mid-40s because he will be trying to spend his way to popularity, but I don't believe it's going to happen, especially with, you have a lot of scandals too that are going to impact his presence in the media. And that's something that you didn't have going in 2020. They hid a lot of stories. They said it was fake. The diary was fake. The laptop was fake. Now it's all proven right. Not like a lot of people care about it, but still, there's a lot of corruption scandals that don't just impact, Hunter did crazy shit overseas. It's Biden, did these shady business dealings with his son. And they covered it up by the FBI as well. Apex Caliber says your take on Candace Owens versus the Daily Wire, which this has been talked about quite a bit. And I admit I've kind of just stayed out of the drama, and I probably don't fully understand it 100% because I haven't been paying the closest of attention to it. But, from the looks of it, it seems like she was, taking positions on Israel that typically Republicans or even right-wingers in media don't usually take, and at that point she was fine, in terms of her job security, but, it is true that they said, we disagree, but, she can have her opinion, whatever. At the time, that was one thing. She said, I oppose foreign aid. She said some, pro-Palestinian statements as well, which, that's kind of a little iffy. Personally, but it is what it is. I oppose foreign aid to Israel. We don't have business sending money overseas right now, period. But that's beside the point. Then she goes on and attacks this rabbi who is apparently a lunatic, and even Ben Shapiro, of all people, is calling this guy a lunatic who's just like losing his mind right now, and he apparently had a website selling sex. I don't know, it's crazy stuff going on there. But then she was liking some tweets that were a little racy that I'm not going to repeat or get into. And at that point, she tried to say it was, I was just liking it for future reference, didn't read the bottom of the tweet, which that happens. You will like a tweet. Some people like tweets because they want to go back and look at something in a tweet. That's kind of why the bookmark feature exists now under Elon. So, probably would be better to use that. Like if I see a tweet from a liberal that I'm going to put in one of my videos, I'm going to bookmark the tweet. I'm not going to like the tweet because A, I don't want that in my likes, and B, I might need to reference it. Bookmarks is probably more of a, a valuable tool to do that. But she liked tweets that said things that pretty hard to defend. So, I think that's what pushed her over the edge. But I honestly think that she might have been trying to get fired as well. Because you make certain positions on certain things. You understand Daily Wire is very pro-Israel. They've always been very pro-Israel. They have a tendency of having that in their history. Whether you support Israel, skeptical, supportive Israel, you really can't deny that. So her kind of taking that out, that's kind of what I believe her angle was, more so than anything else. There were a lot of things that she said that they called anti-Semitic or whatever that I don't believe were anti-Semitic at all. You can disagree with them. It is what it is. But, then she was liking certain other tweets, and it's like maybe that was her out. Maybe she was trying to get fired, because you have to know what you're doing after a certain point. That's just my theory on it. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it does seem like she got fired. It does seem like she got fired over this. But, is it possible that she was trying to look for an out? Because these companies have certain contracts that are very, very restrictive. I don't know. It's interesting to see what position or whatever path she's going to take, because it seems like the first anti-Israel stuff she was saying seems like they were cool with it to a certain extent. They didn't like it, but after a certain point, she touched the third rail, one could say. And now she's gone, but it is what it is. I don't know the full ins and outs of the story, but everybody is talking about it. But yeah, I would have to say that I think that the reason why she ended up getting fired, because it seems like a termination, was because of the fact that she liked those tweets. That's the straw that broke the camel's back. And it's possible that she did that intentionally to kind of find an out and kind of go down as a martyr in some way, but also, I guess you would say, get out of her contract, because she's big enough on her own where she could do her own thing. She has a following. People like her regardless, so it is what it is. So, it's not that big of a deal. I don't really care that much about business dealings, but that seems to be the take on it. Dylan Allen says, thoughts on New Mexico's Senate race. Heinrich won with 54% of the vote in 2018. Nella Dominici is the daughter of the former six-term Senator Pete Dominici. Could it be a competitive race? It's possible it could be a dark horse race, but I think it'd come down to the presidential race, because it is hard to knock off an incumbent senator in a state that happens to be of that partisan lean. But if Trump doesn't lose ground with Albuquerque whites, gains a lot with Hispanics, makes the state within 5, could it be close? It could be, because Dominici is a very, very prominent name that reigns supreme in New Mexico politics. And that is true. Let's see. David Zientara says, given the fact that Trump is ahead in both Michigan and Arizona, it's hard to see Biden legitimately winning the election. It is hard to see it. Now, polls can be wrong, that's true, but we need to make sure they're not. I will say that. And it is true, the polls in Michigan, we're going to do a video on midterm polling. I mean, it seems like we've done several videos on midterm polls and everything like that, but I'd like to do another video on midterm polling. I would, because what it comes down to is the fact that, certain late push polls in October showed Republicans winning the states that they ended up losing in the midterms. But polls at this point show Democrats in very good shape in a lot of these states. Pennsylvania, Dr. Oz losing by 10. Michigan, Whitmer was up in some polls. She was leading by 30 points, which there were undecideds, obviously. But it's I honestly think that the people that make that argument are being very intellectually lazy. And even the polls that were right in certain races, like the polls that had Fetterman winning by 6 in their final polls, they have Trump winning. Pennsylvania, they have Trump sweeping the board. So, it's going to be hard, at least for now, to see Trump lose, unless it's just a turnout game issue, which we'll monitor early returns as well when we start to get them in October. But still, let's see. Real Madrid says Biden's almost 90. Why is he still popular? Because people are sheep. They're NPCs. What do you expect? I mean, this is People are like, how does Biden have an approval rating of 40%? It's like, guys, because 40% of the American public are just zombies. I mean, especially these generations, mainly the millennial generation. Like, I don't think people understand because, if you're like a boomer in the audience, and I'm not saying that to disparage boomers, but your friend group is probably going to be 90% pro-Trump. And depending on where you live, it probably, the people that live in that area are. But you go to the cities, and there's a lot of people in the cities. And I'm not just talking about like the inner city. I'm talking about like even in like Dallas, North Dallas, for example. It's not what it used to be. You have a lot of millennials, and they do tend to, ironically, in many cases, be the kids of conservative boomers. And they tend to be very left-leaning, just your typical NPCs, working a dead-end 9 to 5, miserable, got a lot of debt, their diet's not good, a lot of them are not in the best shape, a lot of them include the androgynous blob people. So, like, that's kind of the main base that the Democrats have, and it's expanding, and it's kind of a problem. Now, that's also why these people freak out at, the Zoomer generation at times, because you do have a portion of mainly young men in the Zoomer generation that are turning towards masculinity, which is more inherently right-wing and trying to improve themselves and, actually hit the gym, actually better their lives. And that's kind of why they try, like, you see articles written about how fitness is far right and all this stuff from time to time from these crazy people, because they're afraid. They understand. They want people to be weak and controlled by the system. The system is a problem because they control so many people. Like, that's what people need to understand. Now, it is true that some people will break free of that conditioning. A lot of people will. But there's a lot of liberals out there. I wish it was not the case, but there are. There's a lot of people. It's not like, everybody hates Biden. Surprisingly, they don't. Like, he's hated. But he's got a lot of people that are going to mindlessly vote for him either way. And maybe some of them aren't even all that liberal. They just fall victim to a lot of propaganda. And those are the most frustrating people in the world to deal with. They're fine with the border being wide open. They're fine with the economy being in the state that it's in. They're fine with foreign affairs being a mess abroad, which honestly isn't even, in many people's cases, it's not their concern. It probably shouldn't be, but still it does affect us. And you have weak leadership. We are going to be dragged further and further into these conflicts, which is a major problem. M says, did Gary Johnson have as much recognition as RFK? No, he did not. Sam Madsen said, if polling is accurate, it seems like Trump is getting back a lot of ancestral Republicans in the Sun Belt who were cool to him in 2020. What caused this? If that's true, it's probably because of the fact that Biden is actually just unpopular. But it's also that black support for Biden is eroding. Does not mean Trump's going to gain a big share of black voters, but it means that turnout overall is going to dip and look more like 2016 than 2020, which means Georgia goes red, North Carolina goes red. You don't have to worry about those states. You're running up the score in Ohio. Michigan, Pennsylvania become easier. Wisconsin becomes easier as well. But Biden's struggling with the far left and the pro-Palestine crowd in Madison as well, which we'll see in the primary what happens there. But that could lead to some problems for him in Wisconsin to the point where he's going to even lose ground in a county like Dane, maybe marginally, which is big in terms of turnout, because Dane always gets full turnout. So if you lose a little bit of ground to third parties in Dane, Democrats are really going to struggle, especially as Trump gains in a lot of those, rural or smaller counties. Cool Blue 71 says, I anticipate Dem underperformances in party-aligned states like California, New York, Illinois, metro areas and their counties will underperform 2020. I agree 100%. Polite Rude Guy says, made 20,000 with Trump stock and still holding. Is this actually true? Is that real? That's crazy. It is like one of those GameStop things, and the liberals know it. It's a meme stock. It's going to be high. It's going to skyrocket, and there's nothing that they could really do about it. Philip Garcia says, did you see Planet Fitness is going bankrupt? I did not see that. I don't know why exactly they would. Let me see. Planet Fitness, they're going bankrupt? I mean, they probably should. Is this because of the fact that they're what's it called? Oh yeah, they had the controversy with the trans. I do remember that. Yeah. Well, good. Planet Fitness is garbage. I mean, they're very far left. We know that. I mean, their whole concept is far left. You sign up, you pay $10 a month for a subscription that you probably never use. We incentivize you to come in when there's food, they get pizza, they have candy. Like, what kind of gym does that? And there's no real workout equipment in Planet Fitness. There's no barbells, there's no free weights. It's not going to help you actually lift. It's just a business scheme is all it is. It's a gym that overweight people sign up to think that they're doing something, and maybe they use once a month for the pizza night, and that's pretty much it. I mean, take the whole transgender stuff aside, which is pretty ironic. The judgment-free zone is upset because somebody doesn't want to have to share a bathroom with a locker room with a man. You know how gym locker rooms are, even the men's locker room. How many naked old people are in the gym locker room? I don't understand how these people get away with that. I mean, if I was in any position of power in the state of Texas, I would make sure that we go out there and we make this fall under the classification of indecent exposure. I mean, nobody wants to see some 80-year-old guy in the gym walking around with his dick out. I mean, nobody in here wants to see that. And now they're going to be transferring that to the female bathroom. Some people are upset about it. They're saying that those people are evil and they're bigoted and whatever. And now people are leaving Planet Fitness. And now it's hopefully is going to go bankrupt. And hopefully they just close all of them down because it's a useless business scheme. Planet Fitness is garbage. I did used to be a member back in the day. Because it was just like one of the only gyms around, and it was okay. I did what I could do to make the most of it, but after a certain point, when you're trying to actually gain muscle, it's like, yeah, I got to go to a real gym with real weights that actually, people that are lifting to get in shape actually go to. So that's what it is. Let's see here. LynRx52 says Trump just said exactly what you said today. He said he's not running to get rid of Obamacare, but will make it better. Yeah, I know. It's like, I don't know if this is because I said it, that it made it up at the totem pole, or it's just his genuine response. But either way, yeah, I mean, the fact that this is just clear common sense messaging and he's taking it and using it is something that I'm looking forward to. And hopefully he does it again. And if I have any other, I wouldn't say constructive criticisms, but suggestions for Donald Trump and his campaign, well, we'll see what happens. We'll see. Maybe I'll find a way to get it up the totem pole again. Stephen Kanizik says, Covfefe was by far the best typo I've ever seen. Yeah, it's up there for sure. Let's see, more super chats. We had a lot of super chats, guys. I'm not trying to be slow here reading them, but we just have a lot. Lynn RX52 with the clarification. Dino Diva says, I agree. Stop the worship of Kennedys and Reagan. This is from a boomer. Trump is right on immigration, economy, and foreign policy. Yeah, it's the equivalent of us saying we need to do Trumpism in 2050, 2052, 2056. It's like, yeah, I mean, Trump is, good for right now. We know that. But by then, there probably will be other issues. And hopefully we will have actually done the things that Trumpism, kind of sheds light onto, the fact that we're going to kind of, move the window over to some other pressing issues. But, I mean, either way is what it is. Tucson PaleoCon says it's for 20. It's only March, and Red Eagle's out here advising the president 2024 is going crazy. Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. We have to win. That's what I care about. I care about winning. That's first and foremost. CCM28 says, crazy how people can't relate all the disasters, infrastructure failures, and wars to Biden. This is what happens with no accountability and a vacant leader. Well, I think most people know, and I think a lot of the Trump stuff is bouncing off. I think Trump is probably going to win, but should it be a blowout? Yes. Are we polarized? Yes, but, it's just a mess. It is a mess what's going on right now. Sam Madsen says, remember when Haley came out against IVF, so eluctable. Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like some of these people that claim to be so electable, Biden wanted to run against Haley. That's why Biden was so nice to Haley. That's why Democrats wanted people to cross over to vote for Haley. They were doing that because they knew that she was weaker. Maybe early on, we heard rumblings, they want to run against Trump again. They don't want to run against DeSantis or Haley. But when they see these people and saw how it played out, like even if the people were saying that at first, they started to understand, no, DeSantis is far weaker. Haley is far weaker. I think Haley would probably come in third. That'd probably be the only conceivable election hypothetical that would make voting for RFK Jr. palatable. He might come in second place. He might try to lean more into the right at that point because he knew it would probably help him potentially win. It'd be insane. But it's not going to happen, and I don't think it should. Omar sadly says, tell young friends to vote for Trump because memes, it works. Yeah, we have a lot of people who would vote for Trump that just don't vote, and that's kind of the problem. It's not like this generation is all like gloom and doom. It's just that the people paying attention, like a lot of people don't pay attention, but Trump is somebody that gets more people to pay attention, which I think helps overall. Like young conservatives, they didn't really turn out for the midterms a whole lot. So there's that. M says Biden's collapsing like the Baltimore Bridge. Yeah, that was insane. I mean, that's scary. A lot of people are going to be afraid to drive on bridges for quite some time. And it's like, how does the bridge not withstand the ship hitting it is what I want to know. Is this just me being ignorant about how infrastructure or physics works? Or what's the main takeaway here? Because it really seems like a ship hitting a bridge should not cause the bridge to completely collapse and for half a dozen people to be killed as a result. Like, I know it's a big boat, but I mean, still, we need better infrastructure. You can't convince me that we can't have better infrastructure. We can't have better technology. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, it was guaranteed to be, something sinister behind the scenes, because I don't know. I don't necessarily know that that's the case. I don't have enough evidence to say it's the case, but still, there should be some investigation over what's going on, because, like, is this a power outage? Was it a power outage that was caused by, some technological thing? Like, these things are valid questions. I don't think that they're not questions that cannot be asked. I'm not saying anything happened. I would not put something forward that would not be true, but something, we should not allow that to happen again. We should make sure that that's preventable in the future, one way or another. I'll say that. Cool Blue 71 says, since 92, every presidential election, which was a party switch, also delivered the trifecta. 24 Rs will win it all. I agree. I think that is technically true. Do I think that it's true because you have an out-of-party, presidential candidate win? No, but, it probably will happen. I think the Senate flips regardless. Democrats are delusional. I don't know how these people are saying Ohio and Montana are going to stay with the Democrat incumbents. There's no way with Trump on the ticket that John Tester is going to get by or that Sherrod Brown is going to go down when he's that overrated. At least Tester has outperformed Romney by, 15 16 points in the past. I don't think he's going to outperform Trump by that. And if he does, I still don't think it's going to be enough for him to win. So keep that in mind. Steve Bullock was probably the best Democrat you could run in Montana in 2020, and he fell short by 10. I know Daines was an incumbent, but Sheehy is tied to Daines, and I really just feel as if, you're going to see Sheehy win. He's not going to win by a lot, but he's going to win by probably 4. And I think that Moreno's going to win by 4 as well. Jake Wish says, what disadvantages do Democrats have? Well, they have a lot of disadvantages. The fact that their policies on the border are extremely toxic, and the fact that Joe Biden's approval rating is 40%, approximately 7 months before the election. That's not a good sign. That's never a good sign. Lover of Green for 10 says the most Pathetic group on the internet is r/Koof. The subreddit is obsessed with masks, latest variants, and long Koof in 24. They need to touch grass. It's Reddit. What do you expect? I mean, there's subreddits for all kinds of insane things. You have a subreddit of people that are angry at cars. I mean, like this is what you're dealing with. You're dealing with crazy people. Cyrus Jalali says, we forget how Trump and Cruz were at each other's throats, and now Cruz backs Trump. After all is said and done, DeSantis will be backing Trump, no doubt. Well, he already endorsed Trump. I mean, it doesn't mean that they're not taking shots at each other still, but it's not super often. Super Dog Lover 567 says, how do we get rid of ballot C boxes? Well, you're going to have to take power, so you're going to have to, in order to do that, win. And in order to do that, you're going to have to use them to your advantage. So, good luck with trying. But, we do have to push for early vote. The people that say I see a lot of people now, they're trying to say, oh, you're giving Democrats data. I think that's controlled opposition, because when they do it by that logic, they're giving us data. It doesn't really mean anything, and we also get more data from it if we do it. So the people that say don't vote early, that's just, I feel like it's controlled opposition. Now, people that say, prefer not to vote by mail, that's one thing, but most places have, I'd say drop boxes secure in the city hall where you can take your ballot, legal harvesting in many states. There's so many things that can be done regarding the election where you get the ballot in, you make sure you're voting, so the party doesn't have to find you at the 11th hour. It's a mess. And then you get Nevada in 2022 with the snowstorm. It was easily preventable by more people voting early. What happened? You'd have Senator Laxalt. You would have Governor Lake and A.G. Hamadeh, because you would not have had the Maricopa massacre of long lines, a lot of people staying home, turned away. It was a mess. It was a complete and total mess what happened, because people chose to go out there and not vote early. That's kind of the thing. Now, do I think we need to scale it back in some states? Yeah, I think we do. I think we need to get rid of this month-long process. Yeah, people voting before debates. I mean, sending ballots out before debates, sending them back. I don't think that's a good thing. You saw what happened in Pennsylvania. I feel like if the Dr. Oz-Fetterman debate was in September, Dr. Oz might have had a better shot at victory. I'm not saying he would have won, but still. I'm proud of you, says, no politics related, but what is the most underrated state in the country? I'd probably have to go with Michigan. I think Michigan, you could make a case for Michigan. North Carolina. I mean, these are beautiful states that get some recognition, but not nearly enough. You've got kind of especially in Michigan, you have a lot of trees, especially compared to Texas. You have these rolling hills, very beautiful in the summertime. There's less sunshine than there is here. I like both for different reasons, but Michigan, I think, is a very underrated state. I know I'm biased because I'm from there. I'm not trying to say I'm not, but there's a lot of states, and people in chat are going to say, it's this state, it's that state, which, some people are saying Wyoming. I think Montana, Wyoming, they're very beautiful states as well. It just depends what metric you're using. Johnny Hartdog says, what do you think about Murkowski leaving the GOP? Good for Alaska, GOP, and America. Alaska didn't want her to begin with. Well, she has done irreparable damage to the Senate in many different ways. I personally think that she's probably not going to leave the GOP. She's, teasing it. I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't believe that she's I don't believe that she's going to be running for another term. Hopefully, I will say that, but I hope that doesn't come back to bite me in 6 years. But she changed the law so she could win. That's what it was. She knew she couldn't win. She changed the laws so she could win. It's tough. Jake Wish says, do you think Trump cash shortage will hurt him? It's overblown. It's there, but it's overblown. I think that he'll have enough money regardless. And he has a lot of money still. He's going to be banking in several $1 billion that he'll have access to by, September possibly. Like this notion that he is going to be broke and he can't win. Like, Biden's going to outspend it, but there's a lot of money that will be spent on this race in both sides, especially as we get closer. Biden has been outspending Trump by a lot, but Trump is still up in the polls, you name it. So we'll see. Rob Figulski says, how does LTE say Biden's path to victory is easier than you think in his last video? What is he looking at so confusing? Well, here's the deal with Let's Talk Elections, and I was, not going to say anything about it, especially because he's, smaller now than I am. There's really no point. But, I still see this, and it does irritate me a lot when I see people that claim to be objective and unbiased and factual, and then they go out there and every video is Biden will win, Biden will win. It's like, just show the honest truth. That's the main takeaway here. Just show the honesty in the product. I never, sit back here and claim to be an apolitical objective analyst, because all the other people that, do the same thing, at least like even 538, like the election mafia, whatever, they see the writing on the wall. And maybe they're wrong at the end of the day, but all metrics point to a Trump victory. If all your content's going to be Biden this, Democrat cope this, you're not being honest. You're just not. Trying to spin it, grasping for straws to drive engagement. It's like if Trump's down in the polls by 11 points and I sit there and I make videos about how he's going to win in a landslide, it just doesn't really hold any ground in integrity. And, it's funny because he does, I think still, I don't really watch all his videos, but the last prediction that I saw from him, he had Trump winning. But at the same time, if Trump wins, you're not going to see the Senate go blue. You're not. And even if you believe Trump wins and Republicans somehow lose Montana and Ohio, Republicans still win the Senate. And if you live by the polls, die by the polls, you have to give Republicans Maryland. Nobody in their right mind thinks Larry Hogan's going to win. It could be close for Maryland, but Larry Hogan's not going to win. So, he's welcome to debate anytime. He's not going to. I mean, we've said this for years, but either way, he's wrong is what he is. He's just wrong. Like, there's no justification for shill video after shill video. I'm unbiased. No, you're not unbiased. You're just catering to your Democrat audience. It's just the way it is. I just say be honest about it, and maybe he will be honest about it, but, there is possibly theories that his channel has gotten donor money from Democrats, the DNC. I don't know if those theories are accurate, but it could be plausible. Wouldn't surprise me to drive up I would say like enthusiasm or whatever. Crescent says, did you think Trump will win Arizona? Same with Kerry Lake. I think Trump will win Arizona. I mean, he's up by 5 points in Arizona. I think that Biden is hitting a wall, especially with the third party vote in there. Kerry Lake can win. I don't know if she will. I think it's going to be close. But if Trump wins it by what the polls are showing, I can't see her losing. She will do better than Martha McSally, who was the establishment favorite, ironically enough. Stepbra says, thoughts on Bruce Liu in California? I don't know who that is. M says, do you think Collins could go independent? I doubt it. She's more partisan, believe it or not, than Murkowski, despite being in the state that she's in. FM32047 says the Senate was like the original Resident Evil game, then Hogan, Cow, McCormick, Dominici, and Bashaw would be Stars Bravo team, and Lake, Moreno, Sheehy, Hovde, and Sam Brown would be Alpha team. I don't play Resident Evil. I don't know. It might be true. Chat might be able to answer that better than me, though. Sam Madsen says, was Pennsylvania winnable under any circumstances in 2022? I mean, the Senate race possibly could have been, but I think for the governor's race, no, I don't think that nominating somebody else would have beaten Josh Shapiro. Mastriano did run a campaign that was puzzlingly bad at times, shutting out all media, refusing to debate. When you're down by that much, just not having any money, was he screwed to a certain extent by the party? Yeah, but still, it's like, he just was in a tough spot. But it does seem as if Shapiro was a little bit difficult to beat regardless. And I think he still would have won by 10 against Barletta, who was abysmal at campaigning. You saw that in 2018. You saw it in the primary. It doesn't seem like any of the other candidates really had that much of a shot either. So they just didn't have anybody. And nobody really ran for either of those seats that was all that prominent because they probably knew that it was a little bit hard, especially in a year where Trump was not on the ballot and you didn't have like a star candidate and Democrats were running candidates that were, Shapiro was decent. I think Fetterman was probably, a mess. But at the end of the day, he looks like a Trump supporter. He dresses like a stereotypical Trump supporter. There's some merit to that, and I don't think Oz was the best candidate. Now, I liked Oz, and I didn't like McCormick, and I think McCormick has all the flaws that Oz has, except I think he has even more base issues because of the whole Trump thing. So, yeah, down ballot effects, it would have been hard to hold that seat. If Pat Toomey just didn't vote to impeach Trump and ran for another term, he probably would have had the best bet, but nope, he had to show his true colors, and it's sad, but Jared the American says Lincoln's the most overrated president in my opinion. Some people will agree. Cool Blue 71 says I'm in Michigan, Wayne County, area of Dearborn. It's good catching a live stream of yours. First time for me. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Base Cat says your most hated paid Democrat operative on X. I don't know. I don't really have a lot that show up in my feed anymore, but I think the Biden-Harris account is probably the worst. And like people like Rupar, people that just like cover Trump, twist his words. Those people get under my skin the most. Ron Filipowski or whatever his name is, can't stand that guy. All the hall monitor people who try to, deplatform people, get them fired for just expressing valid, right-wing viewpoints about immigration and other stuff. Like those people also trash, you name it. Thomas Willingham says, do you support MTG or not? I do. MTG has fallen off in my opinion. She's somebody who, has been a fighter or seen as a fighter. And I think in her first term largely was, but then ever since the McCarthy debacle happened, what is going on with her and Kevin McCarthy? It's a little strange. Maybe you have this love triangle between Frank Luntz, MTG, and Kevin McCarthy. It's possible. MTG's kind of fallen off. I mean, she's caved into the establishment. Her voting record hasn't been as solid. And she only really raised the motion to vacate on Mike Johnson, which, Mike Johnson did cave. There's legitimate criticism there. But at the end of the day, she never supported the motion to vacate McCarthy over the same thing. She only really raised that motion, which got laughed at by everybody, because of the fact that she wanted an opportunity to grandstand, defend, get revenge for Kevin McCarthy. She's fallen off. I hate to say it, but she's all bark, no bite at this point. Because if you're a fighter and you're a little obnoxious, it's good. If you're in a safe red area, if you're a rabble-rouser, you get things done, though. Rabble-rouse and get things done. Of course, the rhinos are still going to hate you because you rabble-rouse, but past a certain point, it's just like, no, I mean, she's just kind of a liability because she's not even that good on the issues, and she's like just a grandstander. So, like, yeah, I mean, her in the State of the Union, whatever, valid. Attacks on Biden, I'm not going to get too mad about that, but I think that sometimes the way that these things come across is a little iffy. I'm not the biggest MTG supporter at this point in her career. I don't know what she could do to really change it at this point, but she's fallen off quite a bit. I mean, it's the way it is. She doesn't have a primary challenger. She's going to stay there for another 2 years. Obviously, I'm not saying she's top of the primary list, but at a certain point, something's got to give because she's just all bark, no bite. It's just like, just chill. Just if that's the way you're going to be, then just stop causing problems, I guess. Stop defending Kevin McCarthy at every possible opportunity. Nobody likes him in the base. I don't know what dirt that he has on her, but it is what it is. David, bunch of numbers, says, is there a point at which the polling numbers cannot be overcome by redacted, like say Trump's up by 7? Well, it depends on what state. I mean, it's funny because 2020, take the end result at face value, Trump still outperformed the polls. So, I'm not necessarily going to say that there's a certain metric. The polls could be right. They could be wrong. We don't know. I'm going to predict the election based off of what I see, what the evidence is showing. It's not just polls. Fundraising tends to matter a little bit less. I don't think we're going to say Biden's going to get a massive leg up based off of that. And if he does, it's likely going to start reflecting in the polling, which really hasn't up to this point. So we'll see. As for the Alabama House race, because I see people talking about that, the one election tonight in a Trump plus one state house special election in Alabama, the Democrat won by 30, but turnout was 10%, not even 20% of 2020 turnout. And on top of that, the people that voted were motivated by the IVF issue, which again, Republicans are not really dying on that hill nationally. So I'm not exactly going to say that it really means that much in the grand scheme of things. Republicans overperform in special elections all the time. Somehow that's swept under the rug. But because Democrats pick off a seat because of a hot button issue that they capitalized on, oh, it's over for Trump. It's like, no, Trump's going to win Alabama by probably more than he's won it by both times. There's no question there. And that's that. And Trump has come out in support of IVF, which, some people oppose. But at the end of the day, dying on that hill politically is not going to advance anything. I don't understand what's with some of these all or nothing type of individuals politically. Oppose something, fine. Bring it into the Overton window, fine. We could talk about the ethics of IVF and everything. But if you're going to run on banning IVF, you're going to lose because, A, not a lot of people who might agree care that much about it. B, the people that do just think that you're a lunatic, whether you are or not. So we kind of have to, if you want to move the Overton window, some of these things are going to be sprinkled in. We're not even winning the abortion fight. You want to bring up IVF. Which, again, is far more popular than abortion is. A full abortion ban is less popular, or it's actually more popular than an IVF ban. So this is something Republicans need to understand. Be careful about these issues. Don't cave on them, but it's not caving to say we want common sense restrictions in the second and third trimester. It's actually, moving the Overton window to the right, but because you're not coming out all or nothing, apparently you're not sufficient for some reason, but you're just going to lose if you do that. I mean, it sucks, that we're in a position where even a European-style abortion limit is going to be considered unelectable, despite the fact that it's 12 weeks. But do I think we could realistically work towards that, statewide in swing states and maybe make it nationally if we play our cards right? Yeah, go from there. But still, we got a lot of work to do, and the pro-life movement has been running around like a chicken with its head cut off ever since the one thing that they attempted to do and successfully did happened with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. What they do from this point forward, that's a whole nother thing. Let's see. M says, what do you think are the bluest and reddest states? Well, you just have to look at the map. It's a cop-out answer, but Wyoming and West Virginia, those are some of the reddest states. Maryland, Vermont, those are some of the bluest states. So, yeah, it's not strategic is what it is. You're not running for you're not running for school board or anything like that, or not even school board, but you're not running for political office. And, even in Alabama, in some places it backfires. That's kind of the problem. You're going to have to pick your battles. If you run on an abortion ban in Alabama, probably going to get a leg up on the competition. Louisiana's they've passed an abortion sanctuary law or a trigger law back in 2020. It outperformed Donald Trump. So you look at that and it's some places you can push the Overton window, but even in certain places, IVF, not going to work. It's not going to work. We have a lot of pressing issues at hand. We got to pick our battles, We do. I don't think that it says means that we abandon certain things. Immigration, I think, is far more important than abortion, because if you're going to be altering the electorate, you're going to have a country that is just going to vote for the pro-abortion left in its entirety, and you're going to have Roe v. Wade again. So I think immigration is probably the number one issue for those reasons, number one issue above any other number one issue, because it dictates who's in the country to begin with. So there's that. Let's see. A history guy says, thoughts on Mike Johnson. I think his chance to prove himself will be in 2025 when Trump is back in office and the GOP Senate has a larger House's majority. I agree 100%. Mike Johnson is somebody that I think his fatal flaw is that he's just too nice. He doesn't want to shut the government down, which has its flaws. And it could be risky politically, one could say. But still, at the same time, I think he's somebody who is a mediocre speaker under a Democrat president. I think with Trump, if his past voting record and history is an indication, he's going to be a very good speaker, or there's the potential for it. So I think that's why I would rather stick with him than try to go through this carousel again and end up with Tom Emmer, who I know is going to be trash under Biden, worse than anything Mike Johnson's done, and then he's going to be awful under a Trump term. So I think that's kind of what we have to look at. JC, 1026, thank you for the 2. So we've been going live for 90 minutes. I feel like it's been a great stream, but this will be the last call for Super Chat. So if you guys have any other Super Chats you would like to send in, now would be the time to send them in. Otherwise, we probably are going to end the show probably in like 5 minutes or so. Sven Olsen says, with the Senate race in Maine, what do you think a Republican's chances would be? Demi Kazonis appears to be the presumptive nominee. I don't think that's a flippable race. I don't know what the end result will be, but if you're in Maine, I'd probably suggest focusing on flipping the 2nd district and get Jared Golden out of there. But he's going to be a tough one to beat. But that's where the focus needs to be on, for sure. Let's see. Jay the Zoomster for 5. Thank you, Jay. Jay the Zoomster. Stephen Knizik says, Trump as president, Rand Paul as Senate Majority Leader, Mike Johnson as Speaker feels like a workable trifecta. I'd like that, but I don't think that Rand Paul will have enough support to be Senate Majority Leader. I just can't see it happening. Hopefully it's not John Thune. I don't know who it's going to be. It doesn't seem like it's going to be Barrasso, but we'll see. JC1026 says, gave to Trump and now rep. Couldn't be more base. That's true. If you're donating to me and you have $1 to spare, go donate it to Trump right now. I mean, he could use all the help. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's broke, but any donation can help. Donate to Trump right now. We got 1,000 people. If just 100 of you give $5, he gets $500 that he ordinarily wouldn't have gotten. So that's of utmost importance right now. Donate to Donald Trump. We could use more donations. Small dollar donor fatigue. Is it real on both sides? Yeah, but it doesn't have to be on our side. So let's go out there and make it happen. Sam Madsen says, will Sherrod Brown win Erie County, Ohio? Let's see if we can pull. So Erie County, that's that's in the that's on the corridor. It's like driving from Cleveland to Toledo. He only won it by 3,000 votes. That's when it probably flips. He did win it by 10. I don't know what the final margin's going to be. Looking at it, it seems like even Mike DeWine that year ended up winning Erie County. I think it flips. I don't think that he's going to lose it by a lot, but I think it flips. I think that Ashtabula flips, Trumbull flips. I don't even know if, Mahoning at the rate that it's going to go is guaranteed to go for Brown, but he probably does win it by single digits, but not nearly by the margins he won it by in the past. Based Cat says, best venue to donate money to Trump, his own website. I know, obviously some people don't want to use WinRed or whatever, but whatever his website takes you to, just so long as he gets the money and his campaign gets the money, that's what's important. Eaters of Dead says, shout out to Trent Staggs, Utah for Senate. That's a big primary there that we haven't talked a lot about, but absolutely true. We need to replace Romney. We get a flip if we get Romney out of there, basically. You get somebody who isn't going to cave at every opportunity. It's Utah. Romney still votes like he's Republican senator from Massachusetts, but he's in Utah. So, he needs to get out. He's going to get out. He's going to retire. Hopefully he doesn't let the door hit him on his ass on the way out, but we'll see. And we'll get in a good Utah senator. It could be a very good delegation if Staggs wins the primary. You have Mike Lee. He's improved a lot. I've liked a lot of what he said on foreign policy. And, you're a threat when the left tries to run an independent, fake moderate conservative against you in a 1-to-1 because they want to get you out of there. But he still won. He still won by 10. Evan McMuffin, as Trump called it. He didn't come close. But it is what it is. So, without further ado, I think we're going to end the stream here. It's been a very good stream. Like the stream. By the way, guys, subscribe to the channel if you've not yet subscribed. I didn't really push it a lot during this stream. But before we go, actually, I wanted to congratulate not just myself, but all of you guys, because we hit 175,000 subscribers a couple of days ago, which that was a huge milestone. We haven't hit a milestone like that since 2022 when we hit 150, and we are currently in our greatest month ever as a channel. We have the best amount of views of any month, including November of 2020, October, November of 2022, October 2020, and we're in March. We've got a long way to go. We also have the second most watch hours, third most subscribers gained. Revenue, the jury's still out on that one, but either way, we are in our best month, arguably, and it's March. We're in March. We're not in election season. We're not in October. We're not even to the conventions yet, but we had our best month in terms of views that we've had in a long time. So thank you guys. It's been great, and hopefully we could keep the push going forward and get to 200,000 subscribers by this summer. I would like to hit that, and then we could really ramp it up during election season and go from there. So we'll see. But do like the stream before you go. Let's hit 1,000 likes. We haven't been pushing the likes that much. We're at 780. Let's hit 1,000 likes. Like the stream on your way out. Make sure we hit 1,000. Let's do this. Let's go from there. Manny says, can Norm Coleman make Klobuchar underperform? He's not running, is he? I don't think he's going to run. I don't think she's going to lose. I think she's going to have her worst election in a very long time, probably of her career, because she's gotten by so easily, and it's a presidential year. But I don't think Norm Coleman is Norm Coleman. He's not going to run. He's not on the list. I think he's retired. He's out of politics completely. But I think he'd probably be the best Republican that could win performance-wise, but I don't think he'd win. Dean Cream Between says New York and California will be solid blue states, but both have been trending to the right for a while. That's true, and that's why the popular vote is moving more to the right as well, in part. So that's why all the swing states, we got to be laser focused on that and not just, we're up in the popular vote, because the popular vote is good, helps with the House especially, but you don't want to go out there and take it for granted. But anyways, guys, I think we're going to wrap it up. I think we're going to end the stream. It's been great. Like the stream before you go. Let's hit 1,000 likes. Subscribe if you haven't subbed yet. I will see you guys with a video tomorrow. I will be out of town for a week or so. I won't be able to stream until next Tuesday, but we got some primaries there, so hopefully I make it home in time so we can cover them. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle out.